All right, so more stuff on the planet, space, just in general, but specifically speaking about the sun, as we've been covering the sun a little bit more extensively than we ever used to. But that's just because the sun has been pretty much out of control at this point lately, as in recent times. I mean, there was a thing always for many years, there was a thing as the sun's solar cycle where it would go through these spurts of shooting out coronal mass ejections kind of on a regularly basis somewhat. um, like I said, it would go through a cycle. I think it was about 10 to 15 year cycle, and towards the end of its cycle it'd get kind of crazy. Well, this cycle in particular is a little bit alarming because not only is it facing towards our planet Earth, um, these sunspots are becoming unpredictable. And I've been watching this very closely, to be honest with you, because not only do I find space and everything about space to be extremely fascinating, and I always watch documentaries on space and things like that, but this one definitely was like, had me kind of shook a little bit, as you guys will read right now. A planet-sized sunspot grew tenfold in the last 2 days and it's aimed directly at Earth. A close-up image of the sunspot, a cool dark magnetic storm of the sun. So as you guys can see, and I had already mentioned this previously in another video, to where it may not look that big, but considering how big the sun really is, I mean, it's ginormous. The sun is huge. It's a freaking colossal giant. This thing is huge, right? Well, a sunspot this big being on the sun is actually probably bigger than the Earth itself, if not like two Earths combined. I think it's bigger than the Earth. I want to say that it's a rough estimate, just going off the top of my head. I think it's bigger than the Earth just itself, but it's just a tiny little spot on the sun. But yet the sun being so big, this hole's very big than what it should be. And again, I've also mentioned that scientists claim that they can read the sun and they can read space like 100% positive, but even scientists are like not even sure about what is going on with the sun right now. It's very alarming and it's very concerning, especially seeing as the world in 2022 is all electricity. It's all digital. Everything's all digital. Currency's digital. Airplanes rely on electronic signals to even know where they're going, where they're going to land. Communications is electronic. Everything we know pretty much runs on electricity. Our daily use of the internet, businesses that are ran over the internet, deliveries that are made every day using the internet, like Amazon and eBay and things like that, right? Well, for us to get hit with a coronal mass ejection so devastating that it causes a whole entire blackout of the whole entire world would be catastrophic. Not only would it cost billions of dollars in damage, but it could also affect the war in Ukraine. It could affect the war going forward if we were already in the mix of war between China and Russia. As you guys may know, I mean, that's irrelevant. It's kind of irrelevant a little bit, but I mean, I'll just leave it at that. I'll just leave it at the fact that, I mean, if we were to go in full-blown actual war and we're in the middle of combat trying to take down both of them at the same time, we rely on this type of technology, right? From heat-seeking missiles to radio communications to environmental awareness of what's going on around us with radars. A solar flare so devastating that it could leave the Earth in total blackout for months, maybe a month, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a couple months. Scientists have already predicted it could be a couple months that we'd be in total blackout, which would cause an economic collapse on proportions that I couldn't even comprehend. And everybody would be out of a job, especially people that rely on the internet would be out of a job. it would be catastrophic. Scientists have detected a rapidly growing sunspot that's pointed directly at the Earth, and it could launch an assault of solar energy our way in the coming days. The sunspot, named AR3085 for the active region of the sun in which it appeared, was barely a blip several days ago. Now it has grown 10 times bigger, morphing into a pair of sunspots that each measure nearly the diameter of Earth. Right, like I was saying, it's about the size of Earth. This hole is the size of Earth, right? And it's pointed right at us. Just so you guys are aware that this is pretty serious, as a lot of headlines may not be covering this. News, I don't see them covering it. I mean, this is pretty big. To think that much radiation getting blasted at us at, what was it, 13 million miles per hour of just full-blown radiation striking the Earth, on top of already coronal mass ejections already been hitting us this whole entire time. Can Earth really handle something this catastrophic of a blast from the sun? I don't know. I want to be positive and say that we can, but a hole the size of Earth shooting radiation at us at 13 million miles per hour, that does not sound good. In fact, I think that they're trying to downplay it, but this could be catastrophic unto the likes of which I don't know. You know, to me, this is very serious. A number of solar flares, large explosions of electronic magnetic radiation that snap off from the sun's surface and launch outward into space, have been detected crackling around the spot, according to spaceweather.com. Fortunately, they are all currently C-class flares, which fit into the weakest of the three tiers of solar flares. The government satellite track A-, B-, C- class flares are generally too weak to have noticeable impact on Earth. M-class flares are stronger, capable of causing radio blackouts at high latitudes, while X-class flares are the strongest and can cause widespread radio blackouts, damage satellites, and knock out ground-based power grids, according to NASA. If the spot continues to grow over the coming days, they could produce stronger flares that could barrel towards Earth, potentially endangering satellites and communication systems. For now, however, there is no imminent danger. They say that for now there's no imminent danger, but scientists just said that there was sunspots. Now scientists are saying that they're growing larger. What is stopping them from not continuing to grow? In fact, who's to say that it could even get larger than the Earth? Who's to say that it couldn't get larger than about 3 or 4 Earths? Then what are you going to do? Because I guarantee you that if this thing grows ginormous and it fires that much radiation at us, I could possibly see this thing taking down our electronic atmosphere, our electronic magnosphere, or whatever you call it, the Earth's atmosphere. Who's to say that it couldn't pop that bitch down? Who's to say that we're not all exposed to radiation soon and we all just die from radiation sickness and poisoning? I guess science, right? I guess science is supposed to be the one that gives us all the news, but I don't see science talking about this at all. Maybe they don't want to alarm people. Maybe they don't want to cause more panic than there already is. But I mean, this is very serious. And to think that it could grow even bigger than what it is, I mean, I think it can. I mean, if it's already this big, what's stopping it from growing bigger? And we have no way of defending against this. We have not came up with some kind of technology that can counter this. And not even just that. I mean, we're already more involved with the war and the coronavirus and now monkeypox. On top of this, and asteroids that have barely missed us, I would say that we're definitely in a very fucked up situation right now that is beyond anything that I can comprehend. And just to be watching closely as this news pours out on the sun, sunspots are large, dark regions of strong magnetic fields that form on the sun's surface. These regions, which typically measure as wide as planets, appear darker because they are cooler than the surrounding areas. According to live science sister site space.com, they form where bands of the sun's magnetic field become tangled and taut, inhibiting the flow of hot gas from the sun's interior and forming cooler, dark regions on the sun's surface. These pileups of magnetic energy often lead to solar flares. The more sunspots that appear on the sun at given time, the more likely solar flares are to erupt. The prevalence of both sunspots and solar flares are linked to the sun's 11-year-old cycle of activity, which transitions between periods of high and low sunspots densities. Every decade or so, the next solar maximum, or the period of the highest sunspot activity, is predicted to hit in 2025, with as many as 115 sunspots likely to appear on the sun's surface during its days of peak activity. Solar activity has been ramping up over the last few years, with numerous X-class flares swooping over our planet since 2022, sometimes within days of one another. The number of sunspots and solar flares will likely increase as time ticks towards the next solar maximum. Okay, and you kind of have a little video right here. Look at this, you guys. Look, I believe that's how big that the sunspot is right there. I believe that's it right there. I mean, again, the sun is ginormous, right? And that doesn't look that big, but when you zoom in on the sun and you see how big it really is, I mean, it's ginormous. That's a pretty bad, ugly spot on the sun. And I mean, of course, I'm no expert on this, but if it's doing this now, who's to say that this isn't going to continue to happen? In fact, who's to say that this isn't a clear sign that the sun's dying, and the sun might die faster than what we had predicted, what science could even predict, which was 5 billion years from now? You might as well shave that down to 1 billion year, 2 billion years from now, that the sun might just go out. I mean, these sunspots are already rapidly growing. I mean, again, who's to say that the sun doesn't just black it out with all these sunspots, because it's old. The sun is old. It's very old. And, you know, maybe this is part of the sun's thing that it does. As it grows old, it starts to cool down. I mean, it can't stay as hot as it is for the rest of our lives. I mean, we know that for a fact. Science has already told us that. But, I mean, maybe this is just the sun's way of showing us that it's getting old and that we don't have as much time as we thought. I mean, to say that we're going to die in the next, like, 50 years from the sun, I don't think so. I mean, I'm pretty sure we're not. But I think science really needs to figure out a way how we're going to save the sun. Because ultimately, it's going to be up to us whether or not we can save the sun. We would have to have something. We'd have to have something. We'd have to have some kind of material that is resistant to the sun's heat. I mean, I would propose an idea. Somehow extract some of the material from the sun and use that to build something to go into the sun and essentially let off a bomb inside the sun, right? And I'm not talking like a full-blown nuclear bomb, but I'm talking like some kind of wind bomb, some kind of wind tunnel bomb that lets off enough wind and pressure inside the sun to at least stir it around to where, because scientists have already also said that one of the main ways that we could save the sun is to somehow get a giant cocktail mixing spoon and somehow get it in there and mix all the ingredients all around, that it would you know, it would revitalize the sun. It would essentially make it last a lot more longer than what it is, and it'd probably be really good for it. That's what scientists say. However, there's just no fucking way you can do that. I mean, it's literally impossible. However, if we were able to get some kind of material from the sun assuming that we could even harvest that kind of said material to cool it down enough to where we could research it and then use its materials to build said device. I mean, this could be a way. Look, I'm not saying blow the sun up, because I think that's the stupidest thing you could do, is blow the sun up. I mean, not that you really could blow it up, but I don't think you want to make it worse than what it is already. But I would think that some kind of wind power or some kind of wind blowing up inside there, just enough to mix the shit around inside the core, might be all you need to really help it. But then again, I mean, I don't know how much more damage that's going to do. I don't know if that's going to make it worse, and then all of a sudden this giant sun just gets angry and it just expands and it just covers everything. Because when the sun dies, this thing is going to grow 100 times larger than what it is, and it's going to suck all the planets in. And then when it's done sucking everything in, it's going to just implode on itself. And then a big bang is going to happen. And a black hole may form. Who knows? I don't know what will happen when the sun blows up, but it's not going to be good. It is going to be all the end of life and everything as we know it. And probably this whole sector of our galaxy will probably be succumb to the sun's power. So just a little bit of food for thought, to know that the sun's being a little bit more weird than usual. And you know, I'll be sure to cover this as much as I can, any new substantial update on the sun, as this has been actually a really fun thing to cover for me. And plus, I find it very exhilarating to cover anything like this. But with that said, hopefully you guys have a wonderful afternoon. I hope everybody's been doing good other than that. And I would appreciate if you guys were to leave a like, especially if you managed to make it to the end of the video. Consider subscribing for more articles that are like this, or anything related to the sun and outer space for that matter, as I do like to cover things now and then when it comes to this. But in recent times, the sun has definitely been a hot thing of discussion. So with that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys later. Thanks.